algebra students! This is our introduction lesson for our video on representing exponential growth. This is our last lesson of 3 lessons where we look at different stories that describe exponential relationships where the numbers are growing and increasing. So far in the first 2 lessons, we've looked at problems like these where we have a story with some information, maybe a table, and we are writing an equation to represent the exponential growth. Go ahead and, because this is a review, pause the video here, try this problem, and then come back to see how you did. In this story, we've got Michaela and her group of fish. It tells us that she is starting with 4 fish, and that every year that population of fish triples. And we've talked about this word triples means you're multiplying it not by 4, by 3. And so we're starting with our 4 fish. So when we write our equation, we could say maybe our total number of fish, we start with that 4, and then it is tripling. So that 4, I would multiply by the number 3. How many times does it triple? Well, that depends on how many years go by. So I am going to multiply by 3, however many years there are. So that is where our exponent comes in. When we look at these equations in exponential growth, each number in this equation means something. And we talked about this in the last lesson. That first number, that 4, always represents that starting point. And your starting point, remember, you can think of it at year 0. You can think about it as like our y-intercept, but we start with 4 fish. And then this 3 right here in our exponential equation, that b, we have named our growth factor. And so that 3 tells us how our fish population is growing. It's multiplying by 3, it's tripling every single year. We've done questions like these where you have a story and you're writing an equation. Today's lesson, though, is really going to focus in on graphs. We've got this graph right here, represents another population of fish, and our job is to write an equation to represent this exponential growth. We looked at graphs in our very first lesson, the one about the genie, but we haven't really looked at them since. However, now you know a lot more about exponential equations. Just like from the story, there was 2 numbers we needed to write that equation. From our graph, it's the same 2 numbers. If I want to write an equation to represent this graph, I need to know these same 2 things. I need to know our starting point, and I need to know our growth factor. When you've got a graph, that means finding different points on this line to help us is going to be really important. I can see, for example, at 1, it is right here, halfway between 0 and 200, so that would be the number 100. I can see here at 2, it's at that line right there for 200. For 3, it's right here at this line for 400. And so by labeling those points, I start to see a pattern with how this one is growing. Do you see what that pattern is to go from 100 to 200 to 400 to 800? Each time we are doubling, we are multiplying by 2. So in order to write our equation, I need to make that observation because that 2 is going to be our growth factor in our equation. That's one number I need. Do you know what the other number is we're going to need? We need that starting point. Remember, your starting point is not going to be at year 1. Your starting point is back here on your y-axis. It's that y-intercept. And so my starting point is right here at year 0. What number is that point there at? Well, I can use this fact that it's doubling to help me know for sure, but it must be the number 50, because if I start with 50 and I double it every year, 50 times 2 is 100, times 2 is 200. I also know it's 50 because it looks like it's halfway between that 0 and that 100 line. Now that we know our starting point, our y-intercept, and our growth factor, we can write this equation. Go ahead, pause the video here and try writing that equation now. our equation would be we are starting at 50, we are multiplying it by 2, it's doubling, and it's doubling every year. So I've got that exponent x again. In today's lesson, we're going to do problems similar to this, where we are writing equations from graphs and also graphing from the equations. Thanks so much for watching.